Hey, welcome to my playthrough slash scoring run of Deathsmiles. Deathsmiles is maybe the first shmup that I really got into shortly after it came out on the Xbox 360. I played Deathsmiles quite a bit, and it was the first shmup that I really got into, but kind of true to form, I don't think I ever cleared it properly. In my mind, a proper clear was playing at level 3 with the EX stage and with suicide bullets, maxing out the difficulty. And that doesn't mean actually that any of the other ways of clearing are not legitimate. It was just that was my goal, and I never actually completed it. So just recently, I guess people started talking about Deathsmiles again, and everybody's consciousness again, because I guess it came out on the Switch and PS4. And this isn't the Switch or PS4 version, but it kind of got me thinking about that unfinished business I had. So anyways, I got back into it and had the idea to actually really kind of learn the system better now that I'm better equipped to understand these kinds of games. And sort of I went in the lab and tried to figure out all these different things I didn't quite understand before about scoring and the recharges, which are really tricky, but I spent quite a bit of time trying to learn them. And so this run actually is kind of structured around the recharges. People were asking me to kind of clarify it a little bit better, and I do intend on actually creating a short video where I clarify these kinds of mechanics a little bit better. I'll talk about it more in this run, and you'll see a lot of the mechanics I'll talk about. But yeah, so in general, the first level here, can't really do any recharging or powering up or anything like that. So the first level is basically all about getting the meter to 1,000 or close enough, and pretty much every level the goal is to end off the level at around 1,000 with your meter, and hopefully a little bit onto your extra plus counter, which is basically what scoring revolves around. And I haven't fully optimized everything. This is my first real scoring run, and even though it's pretty good on leaderboards on Steam anyways, I guess I'm probably at about 15, something like that. Not too bad, but I do intend on optimizing certain things. So for example, on this level, my meter I think was at about 1,000, as you see there, the main power-up counter, and then I think 350 or 400, mainly the points I get from the boss. So here we go. Now that I've got a full meter, I just go right into the power-up. And this is the first thing to talk about with the scoring, is how to get all those skulls. So before you're in power-up, what you're really trying to go for is to get your meter up to 1,000, and then if you don't intend to go into power-up right away, you want to save it for whatever reason, you basically just get those orange crowns, and you don't let them hit the ground. But when you're in power-up, you want those crowns to hit the ground and split into skulls, and then pick up the skulls, because when you're in power-up, each object, each item, gives you basically +1 on your counter. And here's the first recharge. This is actually probably the trickiest recharge in the whole routing that I have. I have a little under 2 recharges per level, and that one was just, like I said, it's pretty tricky. It's mainly about blocking my lock shot and triggering the lock shot around 250, I think, and also clearing those eyeballs before I focus the lock shot on the hounds and then the eyeballs later. So here I'm in my second power-up around the house, and basically at this point I'm trying to get my meter back up to 10,000. You see there it's at 6,000, 7,000, and now we're at 10,000. And right now I'm dropping my meter down to almost nothing in bombing to get the second recharge, which is really hard to get full recharge at this point. You could wait a little bit longer, but then I find that if you wait longer and you don't do it right at that point, there's a tendency to miss getting enough points. If you get anywhere near 700, you're pretty much good to go for the next level, assuming you don't die at the boss, because the boss takes, if you die at the boss or at any other point, it takes 300 points off. And if you're at the next level and you have to rebuild your meter up, that can be a problem. But yeah, if you're at about 650 or 700, the boss, when you defeat the boss, should get you about 300 or 350 at least, which brings you to about 1,000 going to the next level. So yeah, my usage with bombs in this whole routing is basically not for survival until later stages, maybe the EX stage around the boss, and maybe 1 or 2 points on the final stage, and definitely the final boss. So yeah, these scoring tactics for, you know, with the recharge meter in particular, I've actually come to find maybe slightly better, less risky tactics. So this is almost like more recharges that I need to do, which is actually quite difficult to get them all, and I hadn't managed to get them all in this run. But I'm going to end up doing some optimization, as I said, and doing things where I don't need to use my bombs to get the recharges, and doing less but getting more points. I've already come up with some techniques, but I didn't get a chance to do that in this run. So those snake guys, the trick is to use a laser shot to get those skulls, and then use your focus on the head, and it drops a lot of skulls. And with these islands, you're going to want to use the focus shot for the most part. But at this point, I'm really concerned about the meter, because I already know where I want to recharge, and the meter's kind of running low already. Basically, I don't want to be any lower than 250 around here. I'm kind of right around that spot, because here's where I want to recharge and kind of clear away those bugs. And unfortunately, I killed that island. I was supposed to focus or lock shot on both of those islands and get a lot of crowns and recharge. I ended up getting the recharge just off of one island, so I kind of screwed up there, but at least I got the recharge, so it didn't really matter. And right back up into power mode. And yeah, just now at this point I'm using almost exclusively lock shot as soon as I go into power up mode, because I'm again timing it for the next recharge, which is at the very end of the level, and the only way I could get there reliably is by just using the lock shot, because it spends the meter quicker than any other. So I discovered that if you don't shoot at all, the meter goes slowest, and the next slowest is by using tap shot. And then the next slowest is, so I'm not saying this quite well. So basically, in order of slowest meter depletion to fastest, it's not doing anything at all, tap shot, hold shot, or like laser, and then lock shot does the most depletion of the meter. And the trick is learning how much these affect the meter, and especially if you want the meter to go down quicker, because you want to time it for your recharge. That was an attempt at a purposeful suicide here to get my bombs replenished for the next level, and I was pretty inelegant, almost completely flubbed it. But yeah, like I said, I was using bombs for my recharges. That's how I planned it out. But yeah, you use the lock shot to deplete your meter. In some cases, you want to deplete it quicker so that you can get it right at the sweet spot, the number on the meter, to get your recharge. Actually, in this case, this is one where it's actually a good example, because the meter kind of ticks by a little too slow, almost no matter what you do, naturally, just shooting all these things to get points. And yeah, I'll talk a little more about the laser shot, or maybe, yeah, now's a good time, I guess. So, one thing that's good about Rosa, with everything to do with like points and recharges, is that when you let go of her, when you hold a shot and then let go, she sends out a rose, which does a lot of damage, even when you're not any longer holding. So there, I did a little bit of a lock shot just to deplete my meter to about 325, which is right where I needed to be to get this recharge at optimum that I've discovered. But yeah, with Rosa's little kind of roses from her laser shot, basically you can hold the shot long enough to send out a Rose and then let go and not really do anything, not shoot anything anymore. And as long as it's hitting enemies, it'll do a lot of damage. And so this can extend your meter because essentially you're not doing anything, but you're still damaging things on the screen. So there's all these little tricks to learn that give you options to get your recharges easier. The other great thing about Rosa is that she's just super powerful. So bosses go down a lot quicker. And there's another, that can be a tricky recharge too sometimes. Basically just putting the familiar right in the middle of those pigs, I guess, and pulling away and then bombing. Again, I think the meter is best in this case around just under 100. Actually, I don't think I brought that up before, but yeah, in most cases you want the meter to be about under 100 before you hit the bomb, and you're just locking onto enemies. That's the general rule of thumb with recharges, I found. And so yeah, that suicide, I ended up getting a half-life earlier up there with the ogre, so that's why the suicide wasn't that big of a deal, and I got that bomb restock. But this part, I need to work on it a bit more because I got my familiar there positioned to help take, get rid of the falling rocks. I was looking at the rocks too much, and it's really easy to run into the bullets like I did there. So definitely can find a better way to manage that. But as you see, I had almost a full meter, and I took that hit, and I'm now down to 700, which is not optimal, but okay, because the boss is going to give me over 300, and I'll be ready for the next level. The real, trouble is if you lose a lot of your meter, that can really affect your scoring. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, the best case scenario would be to have full meter, and then a fair amount on the counter towards the 10,000, which is your maximum mode to get those orange crowns, which gives you lots of points. So, in some cases, you want to, if you're going to really go for scoring, the best way to go about it is to maximize your plus counter. But I haven't really been able to do that much on my runs here. Again, that's one of those optimizations I'm looking into for future scoring runs. So this is the first stage with the suicide bullets, and most of the stages so far, or the last three stages, involve 2 recharges, but in this one there's only 1 at the very end. And so yeah, in this stage I'm actually making good use of that Rose, as you can see there, the hold laser type shot, where I'm just holding it enough to get the Rose to come out, and then I'm not firing anymore. Again, that's so that the meter depletes a little slower, and allows me to time the recharge at the very end. And of course, the options shot, the Rose shot in this case, is where a lot of those point skulls come from. So yeah, we're almost here at the recharge. So I send a Rose out, but I don't want to kill that last tank there, so I almost missed it. I was hoping to have, the optimum is to have the meter around 120 and then lock onto that last tank, and then bomb actually to deplete the meter so you can get all of those point items and recharge. I almost completely flubbed it, but it ended up working out anyways. But again, that wouldn't have been possible if I hadn't done that. I wouldn't have had enough meter at the end if I hadn't done that trick with Rosa where you just send out that Rose power shot and then basically not shoot at all while it's doing damage, and thereby extending the meter. So this boss can actually be kind of tricky. It can be really easy to just ram into things and die. And also now I'm basically the run becomes a lot more serious. Either I do well or I've basically wasted the whole time that I spend here, so nerves can set in a bit. And so I'm basically like getting as many suicide bullets on the screen as possible before I go in power up. That's the other thing that is often important to make note of, is to choose a power up, entering power up at the time when there's as many bullets on the screen as possible to really get up that plus counter. And I'm also doing the same thing with this level as I did in the previous, where I'm mostly trying to use my Rose shot to do damage and slow down that meter. Although I'm not doing as good a job, just like in the last level, as I usually do. The meter's still going it's going down a little faster than I was hoping. I was hoping to have around 400 around here, or 380 about right now. And maybe using lock shot to deplete a little quicker. But at this point, right where I need to be, almost barely at the right spot. I want to basically start shooting with laser shot or hold shot on the ogre when the meter's around 90. That's what I'm going for. And maybe give myself a little extra time, 95, something like that. So again, with the second power up here, don't have a lot of time until the final recharge, so I have to start using lock shot as much as I can to deplete it quicker. It's a bit of a trick because lock shot can be tricky to manage with all these suicide bullets, and you also want to try to eat up those suicide bullets too. So it's kind of more difficult than it looks to time everything. So for this car here, this is where the recharge is going to happen. And I normally go for when the meter's at 170. Again, I'm a little late. But there we go. Almost perfect, actually. And bombing just to make sure that I get it. At this point, don't really care about the bombs. I mean, bombs are obviously useful, but I've already planned it out so that I'm not going to use it for survival. So, you know, trying to go for score. Another important thing, actually, is the bosses. I'm not really talking much about the bosses because, in my mind, they're not really important for score unless they're kind of figured in with timing the power-up at the very end. You'll see sometimes people doing that. I'll end up doing that with future runs, but in this one, I'm not even worried about that. You know, getting them to, where possible, have a bunch of bullets on the screen and then canceling them out with power-up and then going to the next stage and timing the recharge according to having the power-up already in effect. But yeah, I'm basically treating the bosses as just something to get through. There's obviously nothing like milking or whatever you'd see in some games, which I'm not a big fan of anyways. And for a lot of these bosses, there's usually just a few tricks to keep in mind, and they go down pretty easy for the most part. Except for these next few last bosses. Maybe a bit of a petty thing, but this is one of the things that always bothered me about this game is how you can't skip the cutscenes. I mean, how many times do you have to go through this game, you know, going for a scoring run, and like I'm not reading any of this stuff. It's just a waste of time. And actually, worse than that, quite a few times I'm hitting A absentmindedly, and I forget to switch over to the Gorge here, like I just did there, and I go straight to the castle, and that ruins my run, even if I'm doing really well, because I miss out on all these points. Okay, so this is now when things get a lot more serious. The suicide bullets are a lot quicker, there's a lot more of them. And so my strategy basically at the start is just save my power-up for a key spot. In future runs, I don't think I'll be... Oh, I almost got clipped there. In future runs, I don't think I'll be doing it like this. I won't be saving it there, but this is how I kind of got used to doing it. It's really all about option control. You start kind of getting to more important and advanced techniques with the option control. Kind of placing the right spot there, I made a mistake. That shouldn't have happened. That was really my main mistake in the whole run, I think. Didn't lose too many points, though, at least. But I think it cost me 2 bombs because, yeah, this part gets tricky here. But yeah, so the option control now comes into effect big time. The main one is obviously placing it correctly, which is kind of out of the scope of this run. I can't really talk about it too much. And the other part that not a lot of people even think about, or I don't even know if they know about, is, as a matter of fact, I think it's only relative to Rosa, is using her lock shot as a sweeping mechanism. so you can kind of sweep the screen and eat up a lot of suicide bullets. It can be really tricky though. It's really tricky to master. Yeah, the other characters don't have that ability at all, because when you use their lock shot, it just operates differently. With Rosa, when you're facing the opposite way, her lock shot goes out towards her back and then goes in a 180-degree arc. So if here, you'll see it here, I'll kind of probably sweep it up maybe a little bit. Yeah, there. So it's kind of tricky to get used to. Once you get used to it, you can really use it to great effect to sweep at an angle towards 0 degrees from wherever it's starting. It's hard to explain, but I'll probably go into that again in the other video. Yeah, I'm using the rocks a lot here to try to block as much as possible. Here, I use the lock shot again. So again, that rule about around 100, start locking on. The main lock on here is actually kind of tricky. It's the bridge, it's not the pigs. If you're locking onto the bridge, then you're gonna probably hit that a lot more consistently. And that also involves option control too, because sometimes it's almost more important to have your option at the right angle to get that lock shot. And again, because Rosa's lock shot goes behind her, you have to keep that in mind too. After a little while though, once you get used to it, it's totally second nature. At first it feels a little awkward. So yeah, I'm saving the power up for that part right there. It can be really tricky otherwise. I think I'm a little better at this part now than I was during this playthrough, which was actually only a few days ago, but I've gotten a little better even since. This area right here is usually where it's touch and go. I just barely got through there. And now this boss can eat up a lot of resources if you're not careful, and I still don't have optimal strategy for it. I think there are some tricks probably to take it down a little bit quicker or easier that I didn't really look at when I was doing these runs. That was an attempt at purposeful, getting hit and triggering a sort of invincibility so I can get through it, because those larger circles, they're not really bullets. When they hit you, they're like objects hitting you, and you only get half life taken off. But then I went right into another object, so that didn't work out quite as planned. Yeah, there's quite a few spots where you can actually plan, getting hit and taking half-life damage, and it can really help improve your chances of going through that, whatever difficult area might be. I think there's one on the next level here, I'll probably mention it, though I don't think I go for it. So this is overall not a bad place to be. 3 lives. I don't remember how many bombs I have. 2 bombs, is it? 3 lives, 2 bombs. I kind of allow myself 1 death at the EX stage, maybe as much as 2 deaths on the last stage, before I get to the end boss. So, not perfect, but I allow myself that, if necessary. And of course, Jitterbug, the second to last boss, if you don't bomb him, he gives you 2 lives. And so, if you go into Jitterbug with 3 lives, you actually get to the final boss with 5, so if you don't bomb him. Alright, so this is the first power-up. And power-ups, the most important thing is not only picking good spots where you can cancel those bullets, but kind of determining where the power-up naturally ends, so you're in a good position for a recharge. You just have to figure the spot where there's a lot of enemies, that drop a lot of crowns. Not every enemy drops a lot of crowns. And some seem to drop a lot of crowns, but actually don't. Not enough. You want to get it full recharge. In this case, right here, it's quite hard to get a decent recharge. So I usually just resort to this right here, where I just, kind of give myself a little bit of space to eat these suicide bullets. Here I'm going to do that lock shot sweep there. Without that, I'm not sure if I could have gotten through that. Same here, although I'm screwed up there. Very easy to forget where you're facing if you're not careful. And this can be a tricky part too. Sometimes I handle it differently depending on how I feel about it. So you don't really want to get trapped on the edges of the screen, because that's where if a bullet comes at you, you may not have a place to go to get out of it. And this spot, I'd like to bomb if I have a bomb to get the recharge. And there I took a hit from a bullet that really came out of nowhere, and unfortunately that can happen. That's one of the unfortunate things. But I thought I could get through it, and most of the time I can get through it. It's not like the bomb's necessary to get through it. It's mainly for the recharge. But as long as I get 1,000 right here, so I can get out of that situation, then it's okay, and I go right into PowerUp. That was very close. Way too close. I have a whole routine here. This can be really difficult without having a plan in place. Basically, I clear those eyeballs and then take out the bottom area, do this little turn back around. You have to probably play it back to see what I'm talking about. And then my power-up ends right there. That's obviously not optimal because I have to get my meter back up. And this, I could use that sweep technique with lock shot to get through it, but this little area tends to be quite difficult, so I just decided just use my bomb. I don't really need to hold on to it necessarily. So I take out that bottom object first and then try to get through this whole area really fast, because otherwise you can get trapped by the things coming up. It's similar right here in this section to the one just before. Take out the eyeballs, take out the bottom stuff. Well, this time I went to PowerUp to get past that little area. Take advantage of the invincibility too with PowerUp, both coming in and coming out of PowerUp. It looks like you're gonna just get hit by a bullet, but you do have a very short window where you have invincibility. And even if you're in a cluster of bullets, you'll be invincible. This whole section can be kind of surprising sometimes. Sometimes you can get trapped in weird ways. But otherwise, if I'm at this point doing quite well, which I think I am right now, I'd usually loosen up a bit. I didn't want to do lock shot sweep effect there because I was worried that I would go right into PowerUp. I'm saving PowerUp right for that spot because of those things coming from the bottom. And you get a nice cancel. But yeah, as it stands now, if I were to go into the final boss with not bombing the second final boss, I would have 4 lives, almost full bombs. Fortunately, it didn't quite work out that way, but it's nonetheless a pretty good spot to be in at this stage. Yeah, with PowerUp, this will make it a lot easier. Try to keep, now I kind of try to reduce my meter a little bit and keep it low enough so that right here I can get the cancel. I just barely got the cancel. That one's really difficult. Not necessary, but definitely can be useful. So this was a mistake I made here. Normally that spot is not where I power up. I kind of just panicked and thought, you know what, I'm going to just power up and be safe. Ended up not being the safe call, and again, a random bullet, completely random, came out of nowhere and clipped me. So not only was it not safe in the end, but forced me to use another bomb, because that spot right there wouldn't have been a problem if I'd been in PowerUp. So that's one of the unfortunate things about Deathsmiles, is you can just get hit by a random bullet, even if you're playing really, really well. Alright, so this can be actually kind of tricky now that I only have 1 life. There is a trick with getting through Jitterbug, but it could be very easy to eat a bullet at any point. And I don't want to bomb him, even though I got 2 bombs, because then if I bomb him, I can't get the 2 life bonus. So my technique here is basically just use the lock shot. Not only does it slow things down a bit, which is, you know, definitely a little helpful when trying to get through all this pattern, but it actually kills him faster, and it prohibits him from going to a harder pattern later on. And I think my main trick here is to stay within the first third from the left of the screen, because if you go too close to Jitterbug, he'll throw out a really difficult pattern that is almost impossible to judge. And right around this point, yeah, I'm looking to go up to the upper left area and kind of do this half circle thing. Ended up not having to worry about it too much because I just killed him really fast because I was in PowerUp to start off with. And then this part, everybody does it the same way. I just line myself up with that bomb. I don't think you really have to do that, but it's just something I do as a habit. And you just basically time it up and down. There should be no left and right movements. If you start finding yourself going left and right, you might have screwed up already. But the main thing is the timing. So more or less going to the top screen and bottom screen, waiting till the screen kind of flashes and the bullets appear. When the bullets appear, just start going down right away. Do a laser shot, and then right around his midsection, go switch a tap shot. If you stick with that sort of pattern, then chances are you'll get through it. But at this point, you know, if you don't have a lot of, even if you have resources, and if you get hit, it can be really hard to recenter yourself and, you know, not get into a crazy situation that'll just eat through all your lives. So it's kind of a simple part that can end a run if you're making one little mistake. Like right here, actually, sometimes, yeah, if you're not careful, those bullets coming back down can set that pattern into a totally different pattern than expected. There's a 2 life up. So I also start the TyrannoSatan battle with, I love that name, TyrannoSatan. I started off with this one with focus or lock shot as well. Mainly just to help get through this initial part, you know. Not necessary. And that spot, right there, I kind of panicked. Normally I can get right through that, but I realized I had bombs. I didn't want to be left with unused bombs and dying. You know, might as well just get through this. At this point, this is maybe my 3rd or 4th, maybe 5th clear, and I knew I was going to get a high score. I think my previous high score was maybe 240 million. So at this point, I was just like, you know, just make sure I get the clear, make sure I get the higher score. There's definitely a better way of handling this spot, and actually I know how to do it. I just decided not to, for whatever reason. That's basically just facing the opposite way and shooting one of those boxes with just the familiar. It's kind of a bit tricky, but once you get it, it makes it a lot easier. Okay, I'm doing the lock shot again just to take him down as fast as possible and slow things down. So that's my scoring run of Deathsmiles. I do intend on going for over 300 million points. I already have it kind of mapped out, a route and how to achieve that. I think I could do it pretty soon if I have all these things lining up just as I'm hoping. As you can see here, it's easy to get hit by a bullet even if you're playing well. So, but I think it's doable. And yeah, I hope this helped you maybe understand a little bit of the scoring mechanics a little better and the thinking involved when going for scoring Deathsmiles. I will also do a short video on sort of explaining a little better these scoring mechanics, sort of have a definitive guide on the mechanics of this game, because it can actually be pretty technical. It's one of the more technical shmups, and I'd like to have that up pretty soon. And if you have any particular questions, just let me know in the comments, and I'll try to answer them in that video. So yeah, thanks for watching.